Guys, today I am super excited to be bringing you this video about satire. Why it's important, how it's been used throughout history and remains relevant today, how you can employ it, and at least, which I hope will give you an advantage over other people, how to recognize it. Because, believe it or not everybody can. Here we go. Satire is a tool used throughout history as an invitation for self-reflection as well as to ridicule the powerful. It has often been employed when direct disagreement might lead to negative consequences, ranging from ostracism in today's ultra-politically correct world to imprisonment or death in many countries, which still happens today with authoritarian regimes. So how can you make use of satire to catalyze change, or at least just be able to recognize it when you see it, which sadly not everybody does? What is satire? Satire is a technique to expose and criticize foolishness and corruption of an individual or a society by using humor, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule. It intends to improve humanity by criticizing its follies and foibles. How is it different than sarcasm? Sarcasm is defined as a sharp or ironic utterance designed to cut or give pain. It is often bitter and caustic and is usually directed against an individual, whereas satire is meant for a broader audience. Satire is less incisive, generally more subtle, and roundabout in its critiques. The difference between satire and trolling. While satire usually tries to criticize an argument or an idea, trolling goes after individuals with the express purpose of provoking an emotional response or deliberately misleading or confusing the reader. Satirists generally do not appreciate confusion or emotional responses because the satirist attempts to make his absurdity and his arguments clear to the majority of people. The satirist implicitly assumes his audience is capable of comprehending subtlety, and this assumption should be seen as a form of respect towards his audience's abilities. He does not assume that many people will not recognize the intention of the absurdity. Why is satire effective? What if I come up to you and tell you your political views, they're entirely wrong and you're a terrible person for having them, which happens every single day in America, especially on the SJW side. Most of you will inherently recognize that you have a greater chance of surviving in the epicenter of a nuclear blast than changing someone's mind employing this tactic. The direct accusation/approach triggers an egoic response in the other, is viewed as an attack on oneself and thus an existential threat to one's survival, and is generally dealt with harshly, sometimes violently. Satire, by using mockery or humor, exposes the fallacy of unappealing ideas in a more circuitous fashion. Satire is an invitation to self-reflection. And the more strident the ideas you're satirizing, like in judo or jiu-jitsu, the more easily you can use your opponent's force to throw them off balance and pin them down logically. You don't kill the jester. In medieval times, the jester was the one member of the court allowed to point out inconsistencies or the foibles of the nobles, even the king and queen, without fear of repercussion. In today's political landscape, there are serious consequences for speaking out against the dogma of leftist politics. Disagree in any way and you're instantly labeled a cretin, or worse, a Nazi enemy to be dealt with harshly, possibly violently if you're Andy No, a gay Asian 5'5" journalist reporting on Antifa in Portland. Disguising the medicine.
Just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. The medicine go down. Medicine go down.
Here, the satirical humor makes the underlying message easier to swallow. How to recognize satire. One of the reasons that I actually made this video was because in today's hyperpolarized world, it seems everyone is ready to jump down each other's throat without taking the time to evaluate the context or the history of the person they're engaging. The issue at hand here, prominent young conservative Charlie Kirk, a bright guy, took great issue with Dr. Gad Saad, who tweeted out a satirical defense of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her making U.S. detention centers the equivalent of Nazi concentration camps by using the term never again. Charlie reacted, accusing Dr. Saad of being an ideological educator of the worst kind. So let's take a look at how Mr. Kirk or anyone else could tell that this was guaranteed satire. Baseline. Establishing the baseline of the individual. You probably know super calm people who speak slowly and softly and don't move much. Then you have people like me who speak quickly and their hands fly about as they describe things. This is a description of the general trend of behavior that can be expected from an individual, aka our baseline. When a person deviates from their baseline, we recognize it as abnormal and hopefully judge their actions accordingly. So if your friend, whose demeanor is normally much more sloth-like, suddenly starts jumping around and explaining an event to you in a hurried speech, you're likely correct in assuming that he might be agitated or excited. Much more so than if I were to behave in a similar manner. If you have a friend who's normally a slob and you go over to his house and he's feverishly cleaning, you might assume that he might have a compelling reason to be doing so, whereas if you found your neat freak mom cleaning her house, you wouldn't think twice. Again, you're establishing a baseline, and an unanticipated behavior creates an impetus to explain it. So let's take this to the AOC debate. When Dr. Saad, as a Jew, fled Lebanon due to the fact that members of the religion of peace, note the quotes, were going to murder him and his entire family, and then tweets that AOC under Trump has it way tougher than any Jew in the Holocaust, well, there seems to be a massive dichotomy there. And even if you don't know his personal history, a simple dig into any of Dr. Saad's writings, tweets, or videos will quickly lead you to a plethora of criticism of SJWs and Alexandria Occasional Cortex, as he's fond of calling her, mounting an honest defense of her for anything other than her decision to resign from Congress seems to be incredibly unlikely. Of course, you are likely to find a very similarly written post by someone who works for Vox or The Guardian defending AOC for comparing our border detention facilities to concentration camps in Nazi Germany, where they literally rounded up Jews, shipped them to the camps, and worked them to death or systematically murdered them in gas chambers. By examining their other brain-dead writings and false comparisons that they proudly stand behind, you've established a baseline and know that they're actually serious in their AOC defense. So the first trick is to actually do a little investigation and establish the baseline, rather than respond with injured emotion to something which on the surface disagrees with your beliefs. There is no doubt that in today's society we are inundated with so much data that we often respond in a Pavlovian manner, and that's almost certainly what took place when Charlie Kirk criticized Dr. Saad. Breaking down satire, reductio ad absurdum. Though it comes in a variety of subtly different forms, the most common variant of satire is reductio ad absurdum, in which the author agrees with the basic assumptions that he wants to satirize by pushing them to a logically ridiculous extreme. This exposes the foolishness of the original assumption. An example of this is when Dr. Saad admits to not knowing the names of famous female soccer players and blames it on the patriarchy, which has wrongly taught him to pay attention only to male soccer.
The patriarchy has taught me to view them as superior, as more worthy of watching and admiration than their equal, if not superior, female players. So What I'd like to do is apologize to all of the female players out there. It's only a small gesture, but it's at least saying that I recognize now that women have been discriminated against when it comes to soccer, and I don't want to be a part of that.
He is agreeing with his detractors and pushing their views to the extreme.
It is wrong that I think that Lionel Messi is superior to Alex Morgan. It is wrong that I think that Lionel Messi is superior to Marta. By the way, I had to look up on Google the list of the most famous female soccer players because I couldn't name two of them. But that demonstrates what a sexist pig I've been all along. Because had I not been sexist, I would have been able to name them. But the patriarchy taught me to only watch out for Lionel Messi.
Once again, in this example of reductio ad absurdum, Dr. Saad harnesses the energy and force of his detractors' outrage by agreeing with them and pushing their views to the extreme end, both logically and by meting out to himself the punishment leftist feminists and their allies would love to inflict to those who refuse to bow to their irrational decrees.
It is wrong of me to think that men are superior soccer player than trans men. Please accept my apologies. Namaste.
Now, when you see a group of Shiite Muslims self-flagellating on the holy day of Ashura to mourn the passing of the Prophet Muhammad's grandson, believe it or not, this is not meant satirically, as they have the tradition, conviction, and scars to back it up. When satire backfires, satire can risk backfiring when done poorly. This is especially true when there is little to no truth recognized by the audience when one attempts using the tool. Take, for example, the Jordan Peterson, Cathy Newman interview. Jordan, who is an incredible debater and wordsmith, does not regularly employ satire, and conversely, Cathy Newman went to great lengths in her attempts to exaggerate Peterson's views and have a gotcha moment, pushing them, Peterson's views, to the logical extreme.
If you want
women
domination,
want to dominate, is that what you're saying?
No,
But you're saying basically it doesn't matter if women aren't getting to the top because they might not be happy if they get equal pay. Why shouldn't women have the right to choose not to have children or the right to choose those demanding careers?
they do. They can. Yeah, that's fine.
But you're saying that makes them unhappy, by and large.
I'm saying that no, I'm not saying that. I actually haven't said that so far.
You're
in the
saying
program.
it makes them miserable.
No, I
at the
said that
beginning.
what was making them miserable was having weak partners.
So you don't believe in equal pay?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I didn't say that women shouldn't be striving for the top or anything like that, because I don't believe that for a second.
Striving for the top, but you're going to put all those hurdles in their way, as has been in their way for centuries, and that's fine. You're saying that's fine.
No,
saying that
weren't
intelligence
female
and
traits.
conscientiousness by implication are not female traits.
No.
I mean,
I'm not
that's very
saying that.
dangerous territory.
I'm not saying that at all.
Are women less
There's-
intelligent than men, by
No.
and large? You're just
That's
saying these things,
murderous-
though, to provoke, aren't you? I mean,
Not
you
a
are a
bit.
provocateur.
I never said
You're like
anything-
the alt-right that you hate to be compared to. You want to stir things up.
I'm only a provocateur insofar as when I say what I believe to be true, it's provocative. I don't...
Good satire is like judo, where the greater the oncoming or extreme force of your opponent, the more you are able to exploit their momentum against them in order to arrest their movements and then throw them or pin them with a technique. In this case, Jordan Peterson's absolute reasonability and calm gave her zero to work with, and her attempts to pin him made her look absolutely foolish.
Let's get this straight. You're saying that we should organise our societies along the lines of the lobsters.
So I sincerely hope that you guys have gained an added understanding of what satire is and how to recognize it. In the meantime, I really believe that we should organize our society along the lines of the lobster, and that we should protest and try to do away with the U.S. concentration camps that are on the border, and that AOC, referring to said facilities as such, certainly had nothing to do with the attempt to burn down such a facility, an ICE facility in Washington State by an Antifa member. And the press, they were 100% right not to report on that, and instead to concentrate on the hate crimes that are so prevalent in our society, like Jussie Smollett and the Covington kids. There is such hate in our society. I don't know what to do about it. And I realize that many of you leftists who might recognize this as satire are frothing at the mouth, and that a sense of humor is generally lacking on that side of the aisle. So I have yet one question for you.
Why so serious?
Let's put a little smile on that face. Remember, you don't kill the Joker.